So I should also say I'm fasting right now. It's been almost 2 days, 45 hours. So just water, no food, in honor of this conversation, just to get in the right mindset, get into the spiritual level. I've read that you often fast for many days. Can you explain why you fast and where does your mind go when you fast?
First of all, I'm truly pleasantly surprised and honored that you're fasting. All the more because it feels like you're fasting as a tribute of respect for me. So I express my deepest gratitude to you for doing this. In India, our religious traditions are actually a way of life. Our Supreme Court once gave a brilliant interpretation of Hinduism. They have stated that Hinduism is not about rituals or methods of worship, but rather it's a way of living, a philosophy that guides life itself. And in our scriptures, there is deep discussion on elevating the body, mind, intellect, soul, and humanity. They outline various paths, traditions, and systems to achieve this. And fasting is one of them. But fasting alone isn't everything. In India, whether you see it culturally or philosophically, sometimes I see that fasting is a way to cultivate discipline. If I put it in simple terms or explain it to the viewers who are unfamiliar with India, it is a powerful tool to bring both the inner and outer self into balance. It shapes life in profound ways. When you fast, you may have noticed, as you said, you've been fasting on water for 2 days. Every single one of your senses, especially smell, touch, and taste, becomes highly sensitive. You may even notice the subtle aroma of water itself, something you probably never noticed before when drinking it. If someone walks past you carrying tea, you will catch its aroma just like you would with coffee. A small flower you've seen before, you will see it again today. But now you can perceive its details more vividly. Your senses become extra sharp, highly aware, and fully tuned in. And their capability to observe and to respond multiplies and grows sharper. I have personally often experienced this. Another thing I've experienced is that fasting can greatly accelerate the thinking process and can give a fresh perspective. You start thinking outside the box. I don't know if everyone experiences this, but I certainly do. Most people assume that fasting simply means giving up food or not eating. But that's just the physical aspect of fasting. If someone is forced to go without food due to hardship, with an empty stomach, can we call that fasting? Fasting is actually a scientific process. Whenever I fast for an extended period, I prepare my body in advance. For 5 to 7 days before the fast, I follow various Ayurvedic practices and yoga practices, along with other traditional cleansing methods, to internally reset my system. Before actually beginning the fast, I make sure to drink a lot of water as much as possible. So you could say that this detoxification process helps prepare my body in the best possible way. And once I begin fasting, for me it's an act of devotion. For me, fasting is a form of self discipline. For me personally, even while I go about doing my daily activities during a fast, my mind remains deeply introspective and focused inward. And that experience is profoundly transformative for me. My practice of fasting didn't come from reading books, listening to sermons, or following a tradition just because my family happened to have observed it. It came from my own personal experience. During my school days, there was a movement inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's vision, his vision of cow protection. The government had not enacted any laws at the time. At the time, people across the country observed a one-day fast by gathering in public places in silent protests. We were just kids, probably had just finished primary school. Something inside me said I should be part of this. And that was the first time in my life I experienced fasting. At such a young age, I felt neither hunger nor any desire for food. Instead, I felt a new awareness, a surge of energy within me. So I became convinced that fasting is a science, far beyond just skipping meals. It is something far greater than that. Then gradually, I refined my body and mind through various experiments. Over time, it became a long and disciplined journey for me. And one thing is certain, fasting never slows me down. I work just as much as usual. Sometimes I even work more. And another fascinating thing I've noticed is that when I need to express my thoughts, I'm amazed at where they come from and how they flow.
Yeah.
It's truly an incredible experience.
So you still do meetings with world leaders. You still manage the affairs of India. You still carry out your role as a leader on the world stage, all fasted, and sometimes 9 days.
Well, this practice has a long historical context. I hope it may be interesting for those listening. There is an ancient tradition in India called Chaturmas. During the monsoon season, we know that the digestion tends to slow down. And so in this season, many people in India follow the practice of eating only a single meal within 24 hours. For me, this starts around mid-June and goes on until after Diwali around November. For about 4 to 4.5 months, I follow this tradition of eating only once in 24 hours. Then comes the Navratri festival in India, which usually falls in September or October. During this time, the whole country celebrates Durga Puja, a festival of strength, devotion, and spiritual discipline. This lasts for 9 days. During this time, I completely abstain from food and only drink hot water. Although drinking hot water has always been a part of my daily routine, my past lifestyle was such that I naturally developed this habit over time. Then, in March or April, another Navratri occurs, called Chaitra Navratri. This year, it will likely begin around March 31st. During this 9-day fast, I eat only one specific fruit once a day. So for those 9 days, if let's say I choose papaya, then for all 9 days I won't touch anything else, just papaya. That too, I eat only once a day. That's how I follow my 9-day fasting routine. So there are numerous fasts I keep throughout the year. And this has become a deeply ingrained tradition in my life. Perhaps I can say that I've been following these practices for 50 to 55 years.
Has there been times when you met with a world leader and completely fasted? And maybe what do they think about that? What do they think about your ability to do that kind of thing? And you're right. I should mention that from even my 2 days, my ability to be present, my ability to sense everything, sharply focus on this experience is elevated. But yes, is there stories with a world leader that maybe jump to mind when you were fasted?
Well, most of the time, I don't even let people know about it. It's my personal matter. So I never publicized it. But people gradually started finding out. It became known only after I became chief minister and prime minister. Otherwise, it was purely personal.
Mm.
But now that it's out in the open, I don't mind sharing. If someone asks, I tell them so it might be useful to them. Because it's not my personal property. It's my experience. And if that can help someone, why not share it? After all, my life has always been devoted to the well-being of others. For example, after I became prime minister, I had a bilateral meeting at the White House with President Obama. And he had also arranged a formal dinner. Then as discussions between the two governments progressed, someone said, "Please join us for dinner." To which another replied, "But the prime minister doesn't eat." This left them a bit concerned. How do you host the leader of such a major nation at the White House without serving food? When we sat down, they brought me a glass of hot water. I turned to President Obama and jokingly said, "Look, my dinner has arrived," as I placed the glass in front of me. Later, when I visited again, he still remembered. He smiled and said, "Last time you were fasting. This time we're having lunch. Since you're not fasting, you'll have to eat twice as much."
Let's go to the beginning.